In her book, Ceremony, author Leslie Marmon Silko, a Native American from the Laguna Pueblo in New Mexico, writes, "I will tell you something about stories. They aren't just for entertainment. Don't be fooled. They are all we have. All we have to fight off illness and death. You don't have anything if you don't have the stories." Stories may not be the only thing we have to fight off illness and death, but they are certainly a powerful tool. On today's episode of A Public Health Journal, we'll be looking at the power of stories to protect and improve health. I'm Edie French, guest host for Dr. Ed Ellinger. Please stay tuned.
Welcome to A Public Health Journal, a program that explores public health issues facing our society today and tomorrow. The host of the show is Dr. Ed Ellinger, Commissioner of Health for the state of Minnesota. A Public Health Journal is sponsored by the Minnesota Department of Health and the Hennepin County Human Services and Public Health Department, all working together towards the goal of healthy people living in healthy communities.
Welcome to A Public Health Journal. Today we're going to look at the many ways that storytelling can help us be healthier as individuals and as a society. Stories transmit history, culture, and information. They educate. They make complex issues understandable. They calm us and energize us. They stimulate dreams. They help us understand our place in this complex world. Stories unite us, engage us, and move us to take action. They raise awareness and inspire public engagement. That's why stories and storytelling are so important to the health of a community. We're going to talk about the power of stories in creating a healthy community with Nothando Zulu, president of the Black Storytellers Alliance. Ms. Zulu has been telling stories in multiple venues for many years. Welcome, Nothando.
Thank you.
I'm so happy to have you here today.
It's good to be here.
Thank you. And in fact, you have been telling stories for a long time, and I've personally had the privilege of attending your Black Storytellers Festival, I think on at least 3 occasions.
At least.
At least 3, if not more. We're going to talk more about the festival later, but first let's talk about you. How did you get started in storytelling?
Well, really, I'd say that I told my greatest story at age 8. Because it kept me from getting a whipping. Okay. But, I grew up at a time when we didn't have television. I grew up on radio and listening to the women when they gathered together, going to my uncle's barbershop, listening to the men tell their big fish stories. And so my imagination was piqued, and I loved hearing stories. So early on, that's when I started. And church, you were supposed to be able to tell those Bible stories, and my daddy was a deacon, and you know how it is to be a preacher's kid or a deacon's kid. So
dangerous.
Absolutely.
And do you remember what your first story was?
Well, I told a lot of the traditional tales in school because we were allowed to, and it was like a fun thing. You get rewarded, and you could tell a story. And so it was all of those traditional tales, Little Red Riding Hood, all of those, because I knew nothing of Anansi at the time. And Brer Rabbit and the Tar Baby was the only one that I knew of those. And we really didn't do that because I grew up down south, and I grew up during Jim Crow, so Tar Baby wasn't one of our favorite stories to tell. But Jackie Troyans changed that for us.
Well, tell us just briefly about Anansi, because we may have viewers and listeners that haven't heard of Anansi.
Oh.
Hard to believe.
Well, I didn't learn about Anansi until much, much later, like in the 70s. But when I was growing up, I didn't. But Anansi is a character, a trickster, from the Ashanti culture in Ghana. And so when I was able to go to Ghana, I was able to hear Anansi tales because they had like a tournament of Anansi stories and storytellers that we were invited to. And so he's a trickster that, he's little, but he can overcome all kinds of big animals. He can trick them all And usually he ends up okay, but sometimes he gets tricked himself, you know. So that's who Anansi is.
Okay. And this is a public health journal. What role do stories play in society and in the health of our community?
Well, I think they play a big role. It is, our festival is called Signifying and Testifying. And the testifying, the testimony, those stories of people telling their own stories of survival, of overcoming, even tricking. High John the Conqueror is a character from African American folklore, but High John was always able to put something over on the massa, as he was called. And so, you know, that gave us hope, you know, and actually like a little revenge. You know, we couldn't really...
A little revenge can be a good thing.
Yes.
Just a little.
You know, it wasn't real revenge, but it was a way of looking at, you know, revenge. And so you had hope in a desperate situation, you could keep on going, you know. So that's how important storytelling is. And for the slave who listened to the preacher that the master brought in, you know, well, we weren't allowed to read during that time, so he would have to memorize those stories. But the story of the children of Israel and overcoming all of the things that they did, well, of course, he took that story and he put it in our situation. And so, you know, that's how the preacher really probably became the first storyteller in America for African Americans. You know, he was the one that gave us hope, you know, because we gather in the hush harbors and he would tell those stories of overcoming from the Bible.
And if others heard them, they might think they were just fun stories and not having a message.
Right.
So where do stories come from?
Everywhere. They come from life. They come from experiences. But every culture has stories that they needed for their existence. I mean, because at the beginning, stories were there to teach, to educate folks on where they lived, how they should live together, how they should take care of the environment, all of those things. So, you know, the griot, the storyteller, would gather all of the children because they're the ones that need to know, because they're going to carry on, and tell them stories, and knowing that lecturing them wouldn't last, but a story will stay. Whenever an incident comes up, it might remind them of a story, something important that they need to know. You know. So,
and I think the answer to this is yes, but can stories influence any particular aspects of the health of a culture? I mean, when we think about child development, when we think about nutrition, when we think about the role of men and women and the way we relate to each other, can stories influence?
I think they can. I mean, there's this little story about the frog and the snake and who is most powerful, and the idea is that the people had to cross this river, and if they were bitten by a frog, they knew that they would live. If they were bitten by the snake, they knew that they were going to die. They needed to get the venom right away, or, you know, the antivenom right away, or whatever. And so the frog told the snake, I am more powerful, because it is their perception. And so the snake bit a person, but the frog showed itself, and that person lived. And then the next time, a frog bit a person, but the snake showed itself. That person died because of perception. So, you know, the stories that we have help us, I think, most often of the battered women's shelters that grew up finally. And it only came because somebody decided that they were going to let that cat out of the bag, that they were going to tell their story. It didn't matter what position their husband had. They decided, I'm going to tell this. I'm not going to continue to stay in this. And by telling that story, then others heard it and said, I'm not by myself. I'm in this situation too. And I believe that's how the battered women's shelters started. Somebody had to tell it.
That's an excellent example. And I want to talk a little bit more about health, storytelling, and the festival in just a moment. We're going to take a little break.
So I've come up with a family emergency plan.
Great. What is it?
It's difficult to talk about, so I'm not telling you.
How will we know what to do?
You won't.
I'm so glad I won't have to remember anything.
And me too. Thanks for this, sweetie.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Welcome back. We're talking with Nothando Zulu about storytelling and health in our communities. Nothando, we mentioned the festival. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the festival. Talk about your organization, Black Storytellers Alliance, and the festival. You've been doing it for 22 years, right?
Well, actually, we just completed the 23rd annual.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This is how it started. When Black Storytellers Alliance started, it really was Black Theater Alliance, 1976, over on the University of Minnesota campus. A group of us, wanted to take Black theater, without props, out to the community. And so that's how it started. But then we were asked to do storytelling. And so we found that to be more, there was more freedom and more access to do storytelling. And we ended up doing more storytelling, so we became Black Storytellers Alliance instead of the Theater Alliance. In the meantime, on occasion, I attended what was known as the National Association of Black Storytellers, started by Mother Mary Carter Smith and Linda Goss, because they were always invited to Jonesboro, Tennessee. And I must say, if anybody wants to hear some storytelling just for grown-ups, and go to Jonesboro. Okay. Now, usually I'm too broke because it's the first weekend after our festival. And so, but the whole town is involved in this 3-day festival that they have. So anyway, we looked at that 3-day festival, National Association of Black Storytellers. We wanted to emulate what they were doing. We wanted folks in Minnesota to be able to experience what we experienced. It was so joyful and so varied as far as the styles were concerned. And so then 23 years ago, we started our festival.
Well, and speaking of joyful, we've got a little clip that I'd like our audience to see.
Okay.
I think they'll enjoy it. Let's take a look.
Okay.
You got to help me. I need some more people. Y'all help this baby to pull. Okay. All right. Pull. Y'all grab a hold. Pull. Pull. I said pull. Pull, will you? Oh, no.
No, that looked like fun.
It was fun.
What was going on there?
Oh, well, the thing is that, and that was one of the stories we did at the very beginning. And so this is how the pig got a short nose, because the pig started out with a trunk. And Anansi, it's another Anansi tale. Anansi tricked the pig. Okay. So the pig's trunk got stuck into this bamboo pole. And that's why the baby is trying to help me get that pole off of my nose. She is doing her best. She was all invested in it.
I was actually there that night, and the kid, I was up and back, but the kids were coming, and it was the one little girl that was coming to help, and then everybody jumped in, and I think they would have they would have had you down on the floor. But you did a great job of crowd control in that one. But I think everybody in the audience was just in stitches. And you were going, pull! And everybody wanted to pull and help with her.
That's
that
right.
was just a lot of fun.
Yep.
So I think we've got, I wish we had an hour for this show, because I've got another little clip here, another storyteller, Beverly Cotman, Auntie Beverly, excuse me, who does a lot of storytelling in our community. Many people have probably heard her as well. But let's take a look at Beverly's story.
Okay. And the next day, Blackbird came and she stirred in her blackening pot. She stirred in her blackening pot. And the birds lined up and she spent little dots. Some of them very close together, and some really big and spread apart, and some stripes that were wide, and some that were very narrow. Some were bold swirls, and some were just subtle little touches. And every bird, when the blackening pot was empty, had their own special little spot. And Blackbird told them, I will share with you all that I've got. But remember, no matter what I do, I will still be me, and you will still be you.
A sweet story. Can you tell us a little bit about that one and where it fits, especially in terms of maybe influencing health in our community?
Well, it was about knowing who you are and being who you are. Don't try to be someone else, because it always takes away from your soul. When I migrated here from Virginia, it was under circumstances I didn't appreciate. But anyway, I lived with my brother, but I was taken totally out of my comfort zone. And so I tried to be accepted. And so when I was doing that, I didn't feel good. Everything hurt. So it's about being who you are. You're healthier. There's a freedom in being who you are.
Okay. And we're going to look at one more. It's a short clip, Oba William King. Let's take a peek.
He said, please, Mr. Lowry, would you please let me go? If you do, I'm going to tell you something you really need to know. That lion stepped over, trying to hear what that monkey had to say. That monkey ran up a tree, y'all. He ran up that tree, got away, and everybody say, signify monkey, stay up in your tree. Signify monkey, stay up in your tree. Y'all ain't lying, you signify. You're mad at monkey with me.
We're both laughing at that one. So Oba William King, he's from
Chicago.
He's from Chicago.
Yes.
Came right to our fair town of Minneapolis to join us and told stories. Very quickly, what's the piece that he was doing there?
The signifying monkey, and it's about a type of person who likes to start trouble, usually bringing untruths and causing problems between other folks, and then sitting back and laughing, as the trouble starts, but that monkey got caught too.
That monkey got caught.
Signifier, he said, she said, that type. Usually they get caught after a while.
Okay. So. And I think we're going to take a short break here, and we're going to come back for more.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Everybody has a dream. Mine was to see the ocean. And with a little help, I made it.
Welcome back. We're talking with Nothando Zulu, president of the Black Storytellers Alliance. We've just got a little bit of time left. Maybe let's just say, what encouragement would you give to children, adults, others who want to tell stories? Where can they learn how to do it?
Well, actually, I feel like the learning is in the doing. You know, and so you start with family members. You start with your dog, your cat even, and tell them the story. You know, you practice, because the one ingredient that is most important in storytelling is your audience. What is your audience doing while you're telling? If you're not engaging that audience, then something's up. You need to work it out so that always they get to feel and see and hear all of the things that are going on with the story. So practice doing it, you know, get your feet wet, you know, that's what they need to do. Don't feel like, you know, I don't tell like this one, because everybody has their own style, and that's not what it's about. It's about, you know, being a variety, being yourself as a storyteller, not trying to be somebody else as the storyteller. So that's how that's what I would say to folks who want to tell. I know there are places and things going on. I don't know them off the top of my head, but sometimes there are organizations who do storytelling practice, you know, listening to what other storytellers do to try to help them to
and you do both you and Auntie Beverly tell stories through the Givens Foundation for African American Literature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yes, we do, and we do residencies. We tend to do more residencies with the Givens, and it is going out into schools, trying to come to help students to either deal with character or with concepts, perspectives, those kinds of things. And so we do a lot of different kinds of work, and we use some of the literature that is found in the Givens collection as well.
Excellent. And I feel like we're running out of time. I hate that. Last question, is storytelling the same as reading a book or watching a TV show?
No, it is not. Storytelling is not like reading a book or watching a television show, because with the book and the television show, the pictures and the illustrations are all there for you. With storytelling, you form the pictures in your own head. It is your imagination that illustrates the story, and your illustrations are better than anything that they can put on television or in a book.
And that's healthy.
Yes.
And that's healthy. So we've got a little bit more time. What do you want the audience to know about storytelling and health?
Well, I would say, you know, telling your stories. A lot of times I feel like the children in our communities don't know your story, their parents' stories, their grandparents' stories. And because they don't, they're thinking that they have to be perfect when they don't, because the parents weren't perfect. You know, and so if they tell their stories about what they did wrong, what they did good, you know, their best friends, their school, you know, their fun times, all of those things, sharing it with their children, that's the most important thing we can do.
Excellent. And I think we've just got a moment. What's your favorite story?
My favorite story is the Eagle story. It was called my signature story, and it is about knowing who you are, about my migration, and deciding I'm not going to be somebody else, I'm going to be me. And so that is the favorite one, but it takes so much energy that I save it for those occasions when I feel like somebody needs it a lot. So like in juvenile detention centers, or when I go to the prisons, that is a story for them to be their best person, to be who they need to be, who they can be, so that when they are out, they can stay out, you know, so.
Excellent. And I think this program plays throughout the year, but if folks are listening and want to learn about stories, hear stories, the festival is usually in September?
Yes,
is that
it's always,
correct?
yes, the festival is always the last Thursday, Friday, Saturday of September. And, and if they would like, you know, they can go to Jonesboro the first weekend in
Well, let's keep
October.
them here. Let's not send them to Jonesboro. Let's keep them here. Nothando, this has been really fun. I feel like we could have told stories. I could have had you telling stories for hours here. But thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
It's
and
just
thank
been
you.
delightful.
Thank you for having me.
And I'll be back right after this with a closing comment.
Don't worry, 74 people were picked before me in the NFL draft.
To fight childhood obesity, United Way and the NFL are helping kids play at least 60 minutes a day.
Okay, time for the team obstacle course. Yay!
What this place needs is more healthy kids. To get involved or donate, go to unitedway.org/play60.
Now I get it.
The wise ones of many years ago and the wise ones today recognize that stories are powerful tools. They are powerful because, besides being interesting, enjoyable, and effective in transmitting information and ideas, stories link people to the values, principles, and beliefs that form the basis of their community and then moves them to action. Stories are so powerful that we need to encourage everyone to tell his or her story. That's the only way we will be a healthy community. What story can you tell today? I'm Edie French, guest host for Dr. Ed Ellinger. Please join us next time for a Public Health Journal.